Greetings and welcome to another installment of High Point, Turning Point, and Endpoint. Today I'll be discussing the Jurassic Park franchise and continue with Jurassic World Dominion. And much like Fallen Kingdom, Dominion is a hodgepodge and a certifiable letdown. It certainly continues the endpoint or downward trend of the franchise. It really does feel like two different films smushed together. And just looking at the plot kind of explains that feeling. It's easily the most convoluted story movie in the franchise. And for that plot, on one hand, you have Alan Grant, Ellie Sattler, and Ian Malcolm all making their return to the franchise. And they engage in a very clumsy bout of industrial espionage of Biosyn, the dinosaur sanctuary in particular. And the other side of the coin, the other plot, follows Owen Grady and Claire Daring as they engage in a quasi Mission Impossible-esque global trot around the world in an attempt to rescue their surrogate daughter, Maisie, and Blue's daughter, Beta, the baby velociraptor. And if all of that kind of sounds confusing, it's because it is. And the pacing compounds that even further. Grant and Sattler, although they have an awkward reunion, they arrive to Biosyn rather early in the film. The film's momentum really stalls as Grady and Claire, their side of the equation, have to take the scenic route to get to that endpoint, to arrive at their destination. The main characters of Grant and Ian Malcolm and Dr. Sattler, they've already reached that almost a full hour of screen time earlier. So the audience almost has to wait for Owen Grady and Claire to really catch up to the main plot. But besides the pacing, there is probably the biggest issue I think everyone complains about. It doesn't feel at all like a Jurassic Park movie or even a Jurassic World movie. These two sides of the plot, they don't work well together. They don't work on their own either. On top of that, there are just too many main characters. Now, I'm not saying too many characters is necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes that's a good thing because you need to have people of different interests and different outcomes. But with this movie, it feels like there are just too many people competing for screen time, especially the moment where, the Dinosaur shows up and Grant and Ian Malcolm and Grady all at the same time tell everyone to stop and don't move. It's silly for all of them competing for the alpha role or the leadership role. It would have been fine if it was Malcolm and Ian going back and forth because we've seen that before, but we have just too many people trying to vie for that top spot. And what's really boring is the fact that nothing of consequence happens to them. None of them die, none of them are seriously injured. At no point do you ever really feel like they're in danger. There are no stakes in this movie. Ramsey and Kayla, new additions. Maisie's kind of a main character. Claire has her own time. They're just all trying to be main characters, and none of them have time to develop or have really interesting moments. It does not work at all. And another, I would say, huge problem with Jurassic World is the how the dinosaurs take over the planet immediately in between films, between Fallen Kingdom and Dominion. We're supposed to believe that 20 or so dinosaurs escaping from a mansion can somehow result in thousands, maybe millions of dinosaurs around the world, and all of a sudden they're on equal footing with humans. It's just silly. It wouldn't happen. It's not really believable unless the humans were weakened in some way, and I suppose the locusts destroying all the food supply is that answer. By the time that takes place, the dinosaurs already have a foothold. This is something that needs to happen beforehand. The humans need to be weakened. The human population must decrease so that way there's some sort of plausible way for the dinosaurs to actually take over. And a franchise, I think, that does this well, an example of what Jurassic World should have kind of modeled a little bit, is the Planet of the Apes movie. Especially the first movie. The first movie, there are only about 24 or so apes that kind of escape from the lab and have the neuro enhancements. And the reason why they succeed is there's a small group. They manage to escape from one city. They're only dealing with a small police force. And then in the background, the subplot, there is a virus which takes place and immediately spreads across the entire planet and decimates the human population. And now all of a sudden, the apes and humans are on equal footing, and you could see how it turns eventually into Planet of the Apes. Another weak point, I think, is absolutely horrid. The main antagonist, Lewis Dodgson, really built up in the marketing as to be like the ultimate bad guy, the final boss, the mastermind of all the chaos in the first film and this film. The book end of the series, kind of the overall villain, and is just underwhelming. Is not even strong enough of a word. The guy does not have any presence whatsoever, no intimidation factor, not really intelligent. Uh, Always, lets his thoughts wander off. He's really high on praising his assistant Ramsey, but then he lets Ramsey do all the stuff behind his back, and he seems oblivious to it. This this is nothing like the Dodgson that we saw briefly in Jurassic Park. There's obviously it's different actors, but it feels like a totally different character. He's just never in control. It's like he's not even there in a scene. There's no point where you feel like this guy could be a CEO. This guy could be in charge of the situation. It's just he's going through the motions, and it doesn't work. I think there's too much dependence on nostalgia. Ellie and Dr. Grant and Ian Malcolm are back that you'll forget the plot's not all that. Now, of course, I like those characters, so it kind of worked for me, but the fact there's just nothing else really to it besides those nostalgia bait moments really tells you just how weak the plot is overall. The dinosaurs, though, they are not the problem. They needed more screen time. That's what I would say. More impact on the plot. The Giganotosaurus looks fantastic. If you see the backstory, I think one problem is if you didn't see the original, the prehistoric scene with it fighting a T-Rex, that wasn't shown with every theater. If you don't see that, you really miss the context for that final fight. But the Giganotosaurus is excellent. Problem is, it doesn't really kill anyone of note, or anyone actually. It doesn't even injure anybody. It's just there. And then it gets double teamed at the end by the Rhizinosaurus and the T-Rex. And that's pretty much it. It's gone. It's out. I just didn't like what they did with the Giganotosaurus, which was nothing. Rexy, I gotta say, delivers. Again, always. There's not much you can say about that. Just looks fantastic. Really appreciate the use of practical effects, and Rexy does a good job. Looks good. Now, to conclude, Dominion, it just compounds the shortcomings of Fallen Kingdom. The idea that dinosaurs taking over occurs off screen is not even earned, right? The locusts should have been introduced maybe in the end of Fallen Kingdom, right? That would have made more sense. Or some other global extinction level event, like an asteroid or some sort of dinosaur disease that only affects humans to level the playing field. But either way, Dominion, it's just a letdown. It shows that there's, the franchise, the best days are long gone, and whatever magic was captured by Jurassic World has evaporated. Clearly, this was a trilogy, much like the Halloween 2018 series, where the legacy reboot, or the first film, whatever you want to call it, succeeded. So the studios wanted to have a trilogy that was crafted to capitalize on that success, but it's clear that all the creative juices were used in that first film. And the second two installments are just whatever happens, happens. There's no overarching plan for Jurassic World trilogy. Just whatever happens, happens. And I really do feel that, honestly, it feels like a kid smashing dinosaur toys together, but I think a kid doing that would be able to craft a more coherent story and more cohesive plot than what we got with Dominion. Well, I do apologize for this being like another dour episode. I really do hope, so, that Rebirth will be just that, a rebirth. So thank you again for listening, as always.